You know, there was a very fine line. He didn't want to be my best friend growing up. He was building into me. There were a lot of hard times, too, of growing pains that you go through.
Not letting your personal circumstances infiltrate like your kid's situation. You're letting them be kids.
I got an 11-year-old daughter, and so I tell people I know less and less every single day.
Like, looking back now, he had to be exhausted. He had to be tired. But if he walked in the door and I said, let's go toss, we were going to go toss.
Yeah. As a father, your son's the only person you want to be a better man than you.
Welcome to the Hey Dad podcast, real conversations at the intersection of leadership and fatherhood and what it really means to be present in the moments that matter. I'm Brian Canavan here with Jake Ballard, former Buckeye, Super Bowl champion and great dad. We are two of the three owners of Hey Dad, and we get to be the Hey Dad podcast hosts.
Thanks for the intro. I don't know about awesome dad. I'm trying to get better every day, but Hey Dad is a platform to help dads share the things that mean the most to their kids. Meaningful videos, advice, things that they want to keep forever. So don't let another moment go by. Download the app today at heydad.pro and start building your legacy to leave a legacy for your kids forever.
So each show, we sit down with incredible men and fathers to explore the stories, values, and relationships that shape their lives beyond the spotlight and the lessons that can help all of us become better leaders and dads. Tony, I really appreciate you coming in today, man. Been looking forward to this. I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. As a dad on the newer side of things with 3 under 5 years old right now, it's a learning experience, but it's such a fun ride, man. And I love every chance I get to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, your story is incredible. And I think people are going to be inspired today, not just by your success, but the man, husband, and dad behind it all. So I'll read your bio real quick. So Tony Pike here helped lead one of the greatest eras of University of Cincinnati football history, taking the Bearcats to national prominence as the hometown quarterback, a Reading guy. He led Cincinnati to back-to-back Big East championships, undefeated regular seasons, BCS bowl appearances, and a top 3 national ranking during one of the most iconic runs in school history. Some may say that he single-handedly got Brian Kelly the Notre Dame job, but that's another podcast for another day. Known for his toughness, leadership, and ability to perform under pressure, Tony became one of the defining members of an entire generation of Cincinnati football. He was recently inducted into the University of Cincinnati Athletics Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tony was selected by the Carolina Panthers in the 2010 NFL Draft. After an injury, Tony successfully transitioned into media and has become one of the most recognizable, respected voices in Cincinnati sports. Today, he co-hosts the Tony and Mo football show on ESPN, as well as Tony Pike's Cincy 360. He serves as the color analyst for the University of Cincinnati football broadcast and covers the Bengals in multiple capacities across one of the country's most passionate sports markets. Now, beyond football, broadcasting, and all of the public success, Tony will tell you that his most important role is being a husband to Meredith and a dad to Wilder, Wesley, and Walker. Tony, welcome to the Hey Dad podcast.
Man, I appreciate the intro. I appreciate you guys having me. It's unique because I was thinking about this and of trying to be better as a dad every day. That was kind of the goal at the University of Cincinnati. Like when I was a college guy, like, hey, can I leave UC better than when I got here? And as a lifelong UC fan, that's what we were able to accomplish. And I oddly enough, we were taking our kids, a good buddy of mine, we took our sons to a Reds game recently. And my buddy had gotten a suite. We were in a suite, and we were on the field before the game watching batting practice. And my buddy made the comment to me of, it's weird growing up. I would have given anything just to like sit in the upper deck of a Reds game. Like that was cool to me. And we're taking our sons down and they're sitting in a suite one game and they're on the field the next. And he made the comment of, you kind of want to leave things better for your kids than you had them as well. And I thought that kind of crossed the border of both kind of my sports life and now my life as a dad of, man, at the end of the day, you just want better for your kids than what you were able to have growing up. And I had a lot of cool things growing up.
Yeah, well said, Tony. I couldn't agree more. And Tony, before we get into the football and media, everything you've built, I want to go back to the beginning, kind of talk about your childhood. If there's anything that stood out of how your parents raised you and what they did for you and the sacrifices they may have done.
Yeah, man. I growing up, I honestly can't tell you a practice that I remember at like the junior high or high school level that my dad or grandpa wasn't at. Like, and at the time it was like, oh, here they are again. Like, what are they doing here? And now looking back as a dad, I'm like, my goodness, like they made it out of their schedules, football, baseball, basketball. When I was practicing, they were there watching. Like they just wanted to consume and take it all in. I had such a lucky and blessed childhood because, you know, I was the oldest in my family, which means I was the first. And when I wanted to toss, when I wanted to do anything sports related, the answer was rarely ever no. You know, they built into me and they did so much for me and creating who I am today. But at the other side of it, my mom and dad were also very young, you know, when they had me. They were getting ready to go into college when I came around.
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah.
My dad played linebacker, had a full ride to Kent State. And my mom followed him there. And I remember my first year, I don't remember it, but I was 1 year old in the Kent State football dorms. And, you know, eventually my dad gave up football just to build more into me. So from a very early age, sacrifices were made, you know, by my parents for me. And I really got to see those growing up as well. And it was, again, it was just supportive. That's what I remember the most of, just someone or people always being there and supporting me along the road.
Gosh, yeah. Being a former college athlete too, I couldn't imagine trying to raise a child and the fact that he was chose to walk away and make sure he did everything right with you speaks volumes of your dad. And, you know, maybe that's why I'm 38 now. So maybe that's why it took me so long to have kids, to make sure I was ready to do it. But are you ever ready? But I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. Now, when you think about your childhood, especially the sacrifice your dad made, what are the small moments that stayed with you? Was it small moments, big events, you know, after Kent State and the kind of your early childhood? What are the things that stayed with you about your childhood growing up and your relationship with your dad? I think you mentioned your dad's your best friend.
Yeah. You know, I think just going through and doing everything together. You know, I was never in a household where it was, you know, I'm going to drop you off at practice and I'll see you in 2 hours. You know, it was, hey, we're going to drop you off. We're going to watch what's happening at practice. I remember the little stuff, you know, in the front yard playing toss or him pitching to me. Now that I'm a dad and my son's playing baseball, I remember all the times when I was tossing with my dad. He hit me in the chest because it's brutal having to go chase the ball down when they don't throw it to you. And so, like, I just equate so many little things to my childhood, but you mentioned my dad's my best friend. It wasn't like that, I feel like, when I was growing up. Yeah. You know, there was a very fine line. He didn't want to be my best friend growing up. He was building into me. And a lot of that was tough love at times that I didn't want to hear as a child or as a teenager. And there were a lot of hard times too of growing pains that you go through in your journey in life, and for me in my journey in sports. And it wasn't until I kind of got through the high school stages and started seeing some success in college that I realized everything that had been done for me. And then it started to go from son and dad to friends, you know, and it's obviously he's still as my best friend, but you look at it a little differently when it's just dad, because there are points in your life growing up that they're trying to build so much into you. And a lot of times it might take tough love, or it might take different things to get an understanding of that. But then, man, on the other side, you start to realize it. And I remember conversations like, you're going to understand this one day,
right,
or you're going to appreciate this one day. And at the time, you're like, oh, okay, like just stop talking, like little things like that we have that with dads and teenagers. And now, like being on the other side of it and going through that as a dad, it's like, man, he was spot on with all of it.
I got an 11-year-old daughter, and so I tell people I know less and less every single day. I joke, I don't mean to brag as a father, but everything I tell my daughter, she already knows. It's pretty impressive.
Of course.
So with that, with your relationship, I loved how you said that of things that you'll understand later. What do you appreciate now about your upbringing that you may not have fully understood as a kid as you look back?
I don't think I fully grasped at that time given up by my dad and my mom. I also don't think I really understood how hard they worked. I didn't come from money. We didn't. We lived in for as long as I can remember my early parts of my childhood, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So, the sacrifices for me and making it work. And regardless of, I think, where anyone's at in their journey as a parent, I think everyone can kind of understand you're going to do whatever it takes, and for some that might be an easier path. For some, it's a different path, but I never remember like wanting or needing a lot growing up. I remember it always kind of being there. And at the same time, looking back, there wasn't a lot there growing up. My dad's trying to work a ton as someone who's had just got out of college. My mom was the same way, and just working and doing anything possible, not for themselves at any point anymore, but now for me and then eventually my brothers and sister. I just think the sacrifice growing up, and then you don't know it at the time how much is going into just making it go day to day, week to week, month to month. And there are times as a dad now, you see that of like, man, this is hard. And I don't remember a lot of times growing up that I thought, man, they're struggling, or man, we're not going to get by. They kind of just made it happen. And I think that now stands out on the other side of it a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate. We didn't come from a lot of money, but I don't really remember wanting anything. And I think that's credit to both our parents, like not letting your personal circumstances infiltrate like your kid's situation. You're letting them be kids, right? And enjoying the life and doing everything you can for them. Presence is everything. Kids spell love with TIME, right? Like that's the biggest thing for kids. They want you there. They don't care. They're not going to remember the gifts or anything like that. It's the time spent with each other. It's
the hardest part, I think, now, dealing with work-life stress balance.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I don't remember a lot of times. My dad would travel he worked for General Electric. He traveled a ton all over the country. And like looking back now, he had to be exhausted. He had to be tired. But if he walked in the door and I said, let's go toss, we were going to go toss.
Yeah.
And I think on this side of it now, I have days where I'm like, man, I'm worn out, or man, I'm stressed, or things just aren't going right. And one of the hardest things at times is opening the door to home and trying to turn that off.
Yep.
And just say, okay, here, I'm not going to let whatever else is going on in work carry over to now me being a dad. And it's not always perfect. There are days that I can sense myself of, man, I'm quieter, or I'm thinking about so much other stuff that I'm not being as present as I want to be. And I think it's human at times that you do have those days. But man, as much as my dad traveled and did stuff growing up, he would walk in and I would just badger him. Let's go toss. Let's go throw. Let's go hit. And we'd be going to do it. And looking as again, fast forwarding to now, I think it's one of the most difficult things of getting home and shutting down whatever else is going on and being a husband and being a parent.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I think everybody struggles with that, being able to turn it off and focus on your kids. And no matter how tired you are, like I'm in the early stages of fatherhood too. I have a son who's almost 2 years old. And when I don't see him every day, I'm gone. I don't see him all day. I come home and it just, everything else kind of disappears. Like, it doesn't matter how tired I am or what's going on in my, work life. I want to be focused on him and spend time with him, chase him around. He's in the face. He's not talking a whole lot. It's more gibberish, and he's a madman. But, I'm chasing him around the table. He's playing hide and seek, and he's running into my arms, wants me to throw him. And that's the thing. Those are the things I'm going to remember, that I was always taking advantage of the situation I was in.
Enjoy every moment of it. Absolutely. So, Tony, I want to talk about real quick you're a Cincinnati guy, raised in Cincinnati, heck of a quarterback in high school, and you made the decision to stay home at UC in Ohio. And again, as I mentioned in the bio, had a lot of success there. I think, a lot of your leadership started there, the success you had in football, and have parlayed that into what you're doing now. Can you talk about the process of, as you realized that recruiting process is a little bit different than it is now, but as you talk about going to UC, how you led that process, how you went through that, and then also ultimately how your parents helped shape that and what that meant to you?
Yeah, I was different. I think in high school, man, I was 6'6" and probably about 175 pounds. And I couldn't put weight on. And at the time, I went to Reading High School. We were a small graduating class. So the things that are available now, Huddle and things like this for recruiting tools, weren't available. That was the time when you're making your own VHS tapes and you're sending them off.
Yep.
And I played baseball, basketball, and football, and I actually had more offers to play baseball and basketball than football. I didn't have many looks in football. I was undersized, and I came from a small school, and a lot of that stuff at the time gets kind of painted on you of, okay, competition, he's not there size wise. And, it was very unique in my process. I didn't have much going on the football front, but I grew up a huge UC fan. I mean, diehard. My grandpa would take me to every game that I can ever remember, basketball and football. And we make our own VHS tape. And I give it to the high school coach and say, hey, can you just pass this along to UC? And a couple of weeks go by and I didn't hear anything. And through some type of communication error, the tape never got to UC. So I remember that day finding out, me and my dad drive down to the UC football offices. And knowing anything you know about football, here comes a son and a dad into the football office saying, hey, watch my kid's tape. There's not going to be a lot of people tuning into that right away. It was late in the process. And I come to find out the quarterback coach, Dan Enos at the time, took the tape and threw it on the side. He was never going to watch it because they had already signed a quarterback in that class. And again, here's dad and son say, watch my tape. Yeah. Kind of seen that before. And it was by happen chance. The offensive line coach, Jeff Uleneg at the time.
Yeah, I know.
So we had played Coldwater in the state playoffs, who was number 1 in the state. And I had a great game. We beat Coldwater in the playoffs. And Uleneg was there watching someone for Coldwater.
Yeah.
And he just happened to walk by the quarterback coach's office and saw the tape with my name on it.
Wow.
And said to the quarterback coach, have you watched that yet? I just saw him against Coldwater, and he was awesome. And quarterback coach was like, no, I wasn't planning on watching it. Then they watch it. And that's how I ended up getting offered by UC. So had Uleneg not walked by at that exact time and said, man, and he had not been at the game, I just had a good game at, I would have never wound up at UC. So it's such a crazy fate, whatever you want to call it, that right place, right time that happened. And, it landed me at UC, and that's where I wanted to go. I was unique growing up that after games, I didn't want to go out and do much. I wanted to kind of hang out with my parents and my friends and celebrate that way. And so being so close to my family and then having a chance to play, when I grew up, UC football was so bad, but basketball was awesome.
Right.
You had to buy football season tickets just to get on the list for basketball.
Yeah.
So my grandpa had football tickets. You'd go to the game, you'd sit wherever you want. No one would be there.
Right.
And I just grew up loving it. And so the lightning strike of me getting offered by UC and kind of the rest was history after that. But It was. It was no hesitation from my dad that day of, let's take the tape down ourselves, and it turned into a good day.
Gosh, I love that story about Yuli. So Jeff Uhlenhake, he was so Tony. I was what class were you in? Graduating high school, 2006.
04.
04. Okay, I was 2006. But we had the same draft class. I didn't go drafted, and I was undrafted. But Uhlenhake was at UC when I was getting recruited, and we went down to a crosstown shootout between Xavier and UC.
Yeah.
Me and my dad. My dad went to Xavier, went to Woodward, Cincinnati guy through and through. Loves the Reds, loves the Bengals. But we went to the shootout, watched a great game. Coach D'Antonio was the coach at that time. They actually offered me when I was there. And we come out to our car, and our car got towed. And this is like, this is 2004, 4 probably.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't have cell phones. I think I did have a cell phone, but it worked great. So my dad didn't know what to do. So he called Uhlenhake and told him, and he's like, I'll be right there. And that would have been a major violation. So Julie came and picked us up and drove us and found the car and drove us there. Like, just a good dude. And I'll never forget that. Then he ended up being like one of our strength coaches at Ohio State, and a buddy of mine that we see around town now. And it's pretty awesome. And I love the story about you saying your dad took the film down. So I was getting recruited pretty heavily early in high school because I started as a freshman at Springboro, and I started getting offers after that first freshman year. But I wanted to go to Ohio State, and I was getting some letters, but like nothing crazy. And I remember my dad set up an unofficial visit to go see Tressel up in Columbus. I'm like, wait, you called? I was like, they didn't even ask you. They didn't ask our coach. He's like, well, it's fine. You're getting all these other schools. I was so embarrassed. We drive up there. We walk in the team meeting room. I meet Tressel. Talks about how my size and, you got big feet. Can you move them quick, Dad? And then talk to my dad. And I was so embarrassed, and I just didn't think anything would come of it. Lo and behold, like a couple years later, I got offered by him, and I ended up choosing to go to Ohio State. But like, did my dad have a part in that? Yeah. How big? I don't really know, but I can relate to that situation. Yeah. And my dad was a longtime head football coach too. He taught at Cincinnati Aiken for 30 years.
Yes, sir.
So like I said, Cincinnati through and through, but he was an old football coach, and he's like, we're going to drive up there and talk to him.
Yeah.
So
face to face.
I love that.
I love it.
Yep.
Oh, that's a new one. That's awesome. Well, so you obviously had all the success at Cincinnati, Tony, and both you guys in that 2010 draft class, getting drafted by the Carolina Panthers, probably a dream moment. Can you take us inside that chapter real quick of how you got to enjoy that with your parents? I mean, the culmination of all the years of work since you were a kid. Take us through that moment, and what did that teach you?
Yeah, I went. So you mentioned Mark D'Antonio was the head coach. He was. I thought such an impressive coach figure to me. Yeah. I never played under D'Antonio, but I ran into Mark D'Antonio probably 5 years ago. And when D'Antonio was a coach, I was like number 105 on the depth chart. I was way down. Like I was the bottom of the barrel. And I remember running into Mark D'Antonio, and he said, "How's your mom and dad? How's Steve and Sherry doing?" And I was like, man, like this guy has coached thousands of players.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a blip on his radar. And he remembered my mom and dad.
Yep.
That was insane to me. Mark D'Antonio left. Brian Kelly came to UC and had great success. But I remember we went to a place called Camp Higher Ground for our camp at UC. So it was like a church retreat camp. And that's where we would spend our summer camps. And I remember going into my junior year, Brian Kelly comes up to me and he says, "Hey, you are," and this is no lie, I was 7th on the depth chart going into my junior year at quarterback. And he said, we just haven't really seen it yet. And my thought, I just hadn't had an opportunity yet, but we haven't really seen it yet. We're going to give you a fair chance during training camp. But if it doesn't work out, we're going to honor your scholarship, but there's probably not a spot on the team for you.
Wow.
And this was the start of training camp my junior year.
Yeah.
And I remember, man, I was gutted. Yeah. I wanted to quit.
What
I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, your head coach said
I'm
that
done.
Yeah.
Yes. I said, I'm done. And I remember my first call was to my dad. And, at this time I had been through 3 different training camps, 4 different training camps. I'm like, I don't want to do this again.
Right.
The mental, the physical, and, I'm 7th on the depth chart. And he walked me off that ledge of wanting to be done, wanting to give up football going into my junior year. And we probably talked for an hour that night. I remember standing outside on the field at this church camp that's quiet. We're surrounded by the woods, and it was just a surreal moment. And kind of just said, all right, let's see what happens. And sure enough, I went from 7th to 6th to 5th, 4th, 3rd, and I broke camp 2nd on the depth chart. And our starter, Dustin Grutza, we went to Oklahoma early in the year, and he broke his leg. And then it was my job. And so I went from 7th on the depth chart to starting, and then 3 games in, I break my forearm.
Oh.
And it's like, man, you might be done for the year. We don't know. So injuries, again, you rely on your family to get through that. Go to my senior year. We are a top 10 team in the country. I'm top 5 in the Heisman. Re-break my arm again. And again, at that point, maybe I'm just done. Because at that point you get injured twice. Now you already know what the rehab's like. Physically what it takes, mentally what it's going to take to get back. And man, I had such a great support staff and my family. And I think being at Cincinnati and so close to them helped me out a lot. But I can't tell you how many times I was talked off the ledge by my dad or my family. And I came back in 2009 and we had a really good year. And finished up the season strong, won the Big East championship, played in the Sugar Bowl against Tebow's Florida team, and ended up getting drafted. And that's really what I remember the most. At that moment, you get drafted and you go back to the times growing up and all that was built into you. But for me, I got carried through college by the support as well. And you said it was a culmination of so many feelings. And as much as I was happy for myself, I was just as happy because my family got to enjoy that moment of me being drafted as well. Like that to me was the best part. Like they deserve just as much as I do because they carried me through this at times. So that was it for me. It was the culmination of everything. And man, they were so supportive when I was in Carolina. They came down as much as they could. Just unfortunately had too much nerve damage and too many elbow surgeries. But man, it was a culmination and an enjoyment of not just what I did, but what we did.
Yeah. I love it. And I mean, just what an experience and an honor to even get drafted. A lot of people don't get drafted, play football their whole lives, don't get drafted. I didn't get a chance to get drafted. So very cool story. And I'm sorry it ended the way it does, but not everybody can go out of football like Tom Brady and call their own ending. And I feel like a lot of people think you can just retire when you want. I retired because of injuries. And this next thing's a little less questions, a little darker, but you've probably you played with a lot of guys, seen guys in the NFL who, when the game is taken away from them or over, who seem to really struggle with what's next because their identity is so ingrained in a football player.
Yep.
They just struggle to move on. How did you kind of start rebuilding your identity after your football player, Tony, was done?
It took time. I struggled with it. I remember I was living in Charlotte, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know what was next because there was still part of me that was like, all right, I'm going to try to get back.
Yep.
I'm going to try to rehab. And so that's happening, but I'm also living in Carolina by myself now.
Right.
And the job that I had is gone. And it was dark, man. It was because you didn't have the structure that you had.
You had your whole life.
I was rehabbing.
It's gone. Everything you worked for. You're a football player since you were a little kid, and now it's not available anymore. Just pulled out of you.
I was rehabbing, and I was like, man, I don't know. And it probably took me 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud of that time. I was depressed. I was struggling. I was a shell of myself. And lo and behold, my family shows up out of nowhere. Like, all right, let's pick it up. we've felt sorry for it. We don't know what the path is, but let's figure out what's next. And so I kept fighting, but moved back to Cincinnati, and I still didn't know what to do. I built a name in Cincinnati, so I'm like, all right, sales.
Right.
So then I'm selling
right.
pharmaceutical stuff, and I'm I'm sitting at a cubicle, and I'm cold calling in Washington for pharmaceutical sales, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I can't do this. And because you go from active and you go from these full days, and now I'm just sitting there, and I'm cold calling people that don't know who I am,
right,
or what I am. So I went through that stage. I got involved with the D1 sports training franchises and ran a D1 facility here in Cincinnati. And then by happen chance, the radio opened up, and it started as me joining Mo Egger on Mondays to recap Bengals games. And then that turned into a 1 hour show daily that I did. And then it turned to 2 hours, and now it is what it is with a 3 hour daily show here on ESPN in Cincinnati. But man, it wasn't perfect. And you mentioned the dark times. I was living in them because I couldn't get myself motivated. Yeah. I'd worked my whole life, and at the same time, I felt like I was letting other people down. Right? Like all the stuff that my parents had built into me. Now who I am, I don't have an identity anymore. Right. And I struggled with that, man, every single day. I was waking up, I'd rehab, and then I was just kind of doing nothing. Like I don't even remember part of that time because I was just stuck.
Right.
Until they came down and they were like, all right, let's figure out. And they gave me that's the thing, they gave me time, I think, to process. It wasn't like, hey, your career's done, figure out what's next. All right, let's see, how much can he do? And then when they needed to step in, they did. And that's kind of how I got through it. And you still miss it. I miss it a ton. But you learn different ways to kind of cope with it and work around it. Yeah.
I mean, you're always going to miss it. There's no question. And I still have dreams that I'm late for meetings or late to get, I'm constantly getting ready to go into the game, and I just am taking forever, and everybody starts the game, I'm still in the locker room. It's the craziest thing. And I've talked to other players who still have that too. And it's like a sign that you left it on the field. You didn't finish the way you wanted to. But man, I can relate to the dark times, man. I played 2 years with the Giants, blew my knee out in the Super Bowl, ACL, microfracture, meniscus, serious injury 7 minutes ago, contract year, led the league in yards per catch. And so I was negotiating long-term contract. Then that happens. And then I'm rehabbing. And then the Giants tried to put me on waivers to put me on IR. And then the Patriots snagged me off the waiver wire with 5 minutes to go. So then I went to New England, didn't know anybody, rehabbing the whole time, didn't know these teammates. Then I end up getting cut from New England. Eventually worked my way back to Arizona, got on a team, played a lot, caught a couple touchdowns, and then ended up retiring because my knee was I just couldn't do it anymore. And, this was before I found Christ. But I remember after I retired and walked out of training camp, I went to my house, I had a pool, and I just got a case of beer and just drank a case of beer at the pool all day, just like, what do I do now? And I just have no idea. And same thing, you were in Charlotte, didn't know anybody, right? I mean, besides your teammates, but the family wasn't there. I was in Arizona, across the country from Ohio. And the one decision I did make that I think God had a hand in was moving back to Ohio, to the Midwest, being around family. And me and my dad ended up flipping a house that whole first football season I didn't play, just to kind of keep my mind off it. But I can relate with so much you just talked about.
When I would say, as the one guy in the room that has never cashed an NFL paycheck, I was a hockey guy, not nearly good enough to get paid to do that. But what I would say I would love to hear from both of you is, in an apples to oranges way, so many guys struggle with identity. As a man, your identity is providing, and it's grinding, and it's this. And so, what advice would you both give to guys that are looking at their identity? Again, as your then identity as a father, and trying to juggle all of the different identities you have.
I I think it's hard because I don't think there's one clear roadmap for every person. I think every person is different, but I think regardless of who you are, you have to find something you're passionate about, and you got to find something that you can dive into. I moved back to when I moved back to Cincinnati, I started going to Crossroads and would go to church, and that was kind of a way for me, at least on the weekend, that you go and man, I was like, I would leave church like emotional, like, man, what is going on with me? Like, what is happening inside my body? But I would say you got to find something you're passionate about, and that doesn't always come in a week. It might take a month. It might take a year, but you can't give up. You got to keep trying to find what that passion is, and you got to find yourself. You got to find a way to surround yourself with the right people. There's a lot of people when you get to a certain point that want to have a say or a way in your life, and sometimes they're pulling you in a direction that maybe isn't the best. Do I need to be at the bar on a Wednesday night at 11 or 12? No, probably not. I should probably be, but at the time you kind of get caught up in stuff. So my biggest thing was, and I did the same thing. One of my hardest decisions was, do I stay in Charlotte or do I move back to Cincy? And then I moved back to Cincy and I found something I was passionate about, and I surrounded myself with the right people, because those people, as much as at times I struggled with the fact of, man, they're going to see me differently now, or they're going to think less of me because now I'm not Tony Pike, the football player. Now I'm just Tony.
Right.
And I just had the right people around me that were going to be patient, and they were going to build into me the right way and continue to kind of push those values that now I try to push as a dad and as a father. So again, every path is different, but attach yourself to something you're passionate about and have the right people around you is my thought.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, you'll never have the same path. I mean, I'm not speaking for Tony, but for me, it's going to be very hard to find something that fills the void of playing football, and being around the guys and practicing and all the hard stuff you put yourself through mentally and physically. And everybody asks me all the time, do you miss playing? Yeah, I miss playing in games and being around your boys, but I don't miss all the other crap, the training and the film. Yeah. And some people love film, like, oh, I love film. Like, no, that wasn't me. But yeah, trying to move past when the game ends for you is very hard. And you can't soak on it. You can't sit in it, because then you get angry or vengeful or just sour, and it eats guys alive. And I mean, I've seen that happen countless of times for people around Ohio State or the NFL who are mad they didn't make it. They didn't get drafted, or they didn't really play as much as they wanted to. And then they're still like lost now. So Tony's advice of like finding that next passion, I think, is crucial in a big part of moving forward.
I don't think either.
No,
like it's not like for me, my life has been so different because I struggled for years, and there was good times and there was back down, and there was good times and there was back down, and it wasn't really until when I met my wife, it changed for me, because all of a sudden the other stuff didn't matter as much,
right? Because
now I'm like, man, now I know who I want to be with, and I know what I want to build, and so then I found my new path, right? I was done wondering, and man, she centered me in a way that I haven't been centered, and kind of took away all the other noise that I was filled with,
right?
Like you said, anger, frustration, stress, what if, there was all of that stuff, and it eats you away, and it eats your identity away, because whether you like it or not, I grew up in Cincinnati and I played here. So I was tied to football,
right?
When people met me.
Yeah.
And then I met my wife, and she didn't even know that I played football. So it was like, well, she wasn't building into the football player.
Right.
She was building into me.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of changed everything and really settled me in a way that I couldn't find elsewhere.
Man, I love that the wife saved you. I have such a similar like my wife saved me. She didn't know I played football. She had no idea, didn't know about football much, and then eventually, led me to Christ as well. And I could have signed a big contract in New York, but I would have never met my wife. Yeah. I would have probably never. Yeah. Who knows if I would have met the Lord, and I definitely would have not had my son. So women who save us from ourselves are something special to hold on to.
I got 16 years.
She gets it too. She was a Springboro girl, so you'd understand. Yeah, she was Lebanon and Springboro in high school. So,
what year did she graduate?
And she's 36 now, so she would have been 08, I think.
What's your wife's name?
Meredith. Her maiden name's Fox.
Small world.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds familiar. She'd have been 2 years younger than me, but
yeah, her dad was a chiropractor, but yeah, she was Lebanon and Springboro, and she hooped. So the best part for me was she understood the sports side of things. She played at Ohio Dominican in college.
Yeah.
So like she had like an athletic background as well, and it just kind of made everything kind of fall into place. So yeah, she was, like I said, she was perfect for me in so many ways, and definitely saved me. And like you said, football was awesome, but if that, like, it's kind of like when I dropped my tape off at UC. Had I not been injured and decided to move back to Cincinnati, do I meet her ever?
Right.
And if I don't meet her, then I don't have Wilder and Wesley and Walker. And it's like, man, it puts things into so much of a different perspective now being on the other side of it. Like, man, those days sucked.
Yeah.
But where I'm at now, they were worth the pain, and they were worth those down times because of what I have now.
Yeah, you didn't know what was going to be possible, that fulfillment of both marriage of, and I say that as 16 years married to Megan, a Wilmington girl so down in your area.
Yeah, not far.
The Cincinnati ties here run deep. But then, you talked about the fatherhood piece. So I've got 8 and 11-year-old daughters, and I know you've got 3, and Jake's got Benny, and so as we talk about, and I loved how you put it there, is I didn't know what was going to be possible, that fulfillment. As you became a dad, everything you've achieved as far as athletics, the broadcasting career. Talk me through what it's been like to evolve and see that joy, share that with your family and as a dad, and just be able to enjoy that.
I mean, it's the greatest thing on earth. I mean, there's nothing better, in my opinion, than being a dad. And, you mentioned the Hall of Fame. I was so happy that I got to go in the Hall of Fame, but to me, it was so much better because my son and daughter are old enough to realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Like my youngest Walker, he's going to be 2 next month. Like, he doesn't know, but like my son's starting to pick up on stuff. My daughter, and I was like, man, it's cool to go in the Hall of Fame, but it's even cooler that they get to be here and kind of understand who I used to be.
Right.
And, I don't think there's a word to describe how fulfilling being a dad is. And that's not to say it's not frustrating at times. It's not to say it's not hard. And there are times, just like in football or in sports and in life, you're like, am I doing this right?
Right.
Is the way I'm teaching this, is the way I'm building into them, is that right? And we all have it. I've lost my temper at times. I've not turned off the stresses of life when I've gotten home and been a present dad all the time, but I try to be, because they have this ability, when you don't even realize it, that they make you want to be better on a daily basis.
Right.
And I said it early on when I had the conversation with my buddy a couple of weeks ago. I had a great childhood, and I've had a great support staff, and I just want them to have it better.
Right.
That to me, you don't even realize when you're in the moment. And everyone says the same thing: enjoy it, because it flies by, and you're like, oh, okay, are you waking up at 3 a.m. right now?
Yeah.
Like, but it does. Like, it is. It goes slow, but it also goes so fast. And, this summer I'm going to have a 2, 5, and 6-year-old, and I can't even believe that. But they change you in ways that you didn't even know were ever possible.
Yeah.
Yes, and much like the rest of life, I don't think there's a clear path. I don't think there's this is the right way to be a dad, this is the wrong way to be a dad. I think everyone kind of works through and understands their process, but I think that's what makes it so fun, is the process and finding that out as you go.
Yeah, I always love that saying, the days are long, but the years are short. You live that right now. My daughter, my wife just shared a a back-to-back photo of my daughter finishing kindergarten, and now she's going into 6th grade.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, we're halfway done parenting her as a kid. That was a, wow, I blinked once. But so, and I think what you're getting into is managing that tension. We've talked about this a lot is, again, as you built something and you've built your real estate practice, you've built this media, kind of platform, but then also managing being that dad and being able to be there and be present. You talked about, I loved how you kind of said it before of leaving all of that at the door the best you can and do your best as you can. So what practical advice, would you give to dads to try and maximize knowing that we are all managing this tension? What's some practical advice you might give dads that feel like they're being pulled in both directions and doing the best they can?
I just think having the understanding for me, because I think as dads, a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that, you got to be perfect or you got to have the answers to everything. For me, it's understanding I don't have all the answers and understanding, that there are days where you're going to be off and those days are okay, but to maximize the opportunities you have. For me, they go quick. Football season starts and, all of a sudden I'm leaving with UC on a Friday and I get back at 4 a.m. on Sunday and then I'm doing Bengals pregame. Like I lose so much time during football season, but I'm also passionate about it and it pays bills. Right. So I'm away a lot and then you get home and man, you're exhausted, but it's the little stuff. It doesn't have to be these grand gestures all the time. It can be reading a book or like I said, playing toss or just being present and focusing on them. I think that's the hardest part, that I've gone through is still working through it. I don't think you're ever perfect as a parent, and to understand that you're going to continue to evolve and you're continue to grow, and who and what you think is right today might not be what you think is right the next week. So you got to be willing to evolve. I think it's awesome to be able to and this was part of football as well, take parts of other people's game, right? There were quarterbacks that I would watch, right, that I would be like, man, I want to try that, or I want to try that. I think that's the same thing in fatherhood. Like there are things out there like, man, this family does that, or this, and it might not be right for every family, but man, that's something I want to try.
Right.
That's something I want to do with my kids. That's something I want to do with my wife. My wife and I, we've had conversations of making sure we don't lose ourselves in being parents right now. Right. Set aside our date nights, set aside time for us just to be, a couple and not have the kids at the same time. But you take a lot from different people. You hear it a lot of times in football. It's a copycat league.
Yep.
I'm not afraid to do that as a parent as well. Like, man, look what they're doing. I kind of like that. Let's try that. I'm not too proud to say, man, I'm going to pick up on what these guys are doing. And some of it works, some of it doesn't. But I think just being open and willing to do that makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's being a parent is not a competition between other parents. You want to try and grab everything you can to improve your kid's life. And I mean, it's one thing I think about all the time. It's like, I don't want to screw my son up, because I'm the worst person I know. Talking biblically, Paul talks about him being the worst sinner he knows. Like, I know the things I'm not great at, and sometimes anger or whatever it might be, and I know that I don't want to pass that to my son. And you're, as a father, you're gonna be the only person in your son's life who wants. Your son's the only person you want to be a better man than you. I mean, that's what it is, and so I want him to take the good parts, but I also want them to be better. And there's some tension with that. And I think it's like that athlete mindset, trying to get better every day or every play. I'm going to pick one thing I'm going to get better at today and stack that up. So I love that advice. One of the reasons
I was lucky.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I was lucky that I was so close with my family. Like, I want that for my kids. Yeah. Like, I want when my kids eventually grow up that they want to come back and be around because of the upbringing they had. Right. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I still want to do. And it's not always easy, but you hit the nail on the head, and it's a great way to think of it. I don't want, I love my coworkers. I don't want them to have more success than I do.
Right.
You know, I want to be the top guy.
Right.
You know, I want to be that in life. I want to be the best husband. You know, I don't want other husbands to be better than what I am to my wife. But it's different because with your kids, you put all that aside. And I want all of my kids to be better than who I am and what I am.
Yep.
And it's crazy because if they're better than me, then I feel like this was a success.
Yep.
And then they've been given more opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. You know, diving into like our Hey Dad moment, one of the reasons we built Hey Dad was because of how fast life moves, right? And dads often assume their kids just know what they believe or the values or how they feel without actually saying it out loud. Has becoming a father made you more intentional with the words you say to your kids?
Yeah, but I think what I like the most about Hey Dad is, for me, like, there's times that I know I want to say stuff, but I don't really know the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe when to do it. And, you know, I get familiar with Hey Dad. It's like, not only do you have this opportunity to give back or to have these conversations, like, well, for me, are huge. Like, you know, just a little nudge of, hey, talk about this, or what do you think about this? Like, that to me is the difference, because I feel like I have so much that I do want to say, and I have things that I want to get across, but still, I'm 40 now. I don't always know the right way to get it across. I don't always know when to say it. And now, you know, what's great for me, I can be on a commercial break on radio, and I can think of something, and I can pull up the app, and I can leave a message. You know, I was scrolling through videos the other day, and it was a video of a dad talking about 3 things that he wants to instill. And like, next break, I pulled up the app, and, you know, I kind of gave the same message. Then I left it for my kids. So it just gives you an opportunity whenever, wherever, to build and leave these messages that, you know, I'm still lucky enough. I have one of my grandpas is still with us, and my dad is still with us. So I can still have these conversations, but, you know, my kids are going to have a chance one day to hear this advice or hear these conversations. Or, you know, they graduated from pre-K the other day, and I got on there and left a message about how proud I am, because sometimes it's easier to say it into that than it is to say it to them. And they might not fully understand it, but maybe in a couple of years, they're going to understand where I was coming from when they get that. So I think it's awesome in so many ways. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I mean, being able to leave that for them, that they can go back and look at one day, whether you're here or not, you're just really you're saving a part of you for them forever.
Absolutely. And as guys, as athletes too, I think, you know, I love what you said there about not knowing the words. You know, as somebody that grew up, you know, like we all did, as far as in touch with our emotions, put those down. Let's shove those down. You know, you know, it takes some of the pressure off of, you know, I got to find the right words at the right second live, versus where it's like, I can share what we want to share with my kids. And so I loved how you said that, because, you know, I think all of us there is no playbook on how we, you know, share our values, our faith, these stories with our kids. So I guess what I would ask too, I would love to hear is, you know, for the dads that are listening right now who feel like they're either fallen short. I mean, I think I give you a lot of praise, because I think, you know, again, I love it. You said we're not perfect. None of us 3 are perfect. We're all going to fall short. But I think your effort, your mindset, your priorities are right. So for the guys that feel like, hey, maybe I'm falling short a little bit, that tension is pulling, and I'm trying to build businesses and this and that, and maybe I'm falling short, what would you tell them? What advice might you give?
You know, I think you just said it. I think effort. You know, as long as you're putting in the effort, you're going to get through the other side. Like you're gonna break through. But, you know, when you see the things go south, it's kind of when people give up. They say, well, I'm not, you know, it's this, much like sports, much like everyday life, it's not easy. Like it is an unbelievable gift and a blessing to be a dad and a husband, but it's not easy all the time. And I think just, even when it's not easy, just put the effort in, you're going to break through with it, right? Good days, bad days, as long as the effort is there, I think you're going to come out on the other side. Like I also, like, I found myself, and this kind of goes back to Hey Dad, I find myself now more than ever writing stuff down when I think about it. Like, there's been times where I'm like, oh, I'll just put this off and do this. Now, like, again, I can be doing anything and I'll jot notes down that I want to take to then make into a video or give myself something later in the day. Okay, I can't deal with this now because I'm going through so much right now, but I'm going to write this down. And then later when I'm relaxed or when I'm sitting there, I don't have and I'll revisit this. And again, I think that just all, it's simple, but it's also not. It's just the effort, making sure that the effort is always there, and you're going to find the breakthroughs.
Man, that's gold. That's great, man. I love it.
So last question here. So if you could record a message for your kids this morning and they were going to hear it from yours now, which I know you're a Hey Dad user, so you do, what would you want them to know? One thing.
Man, I think the biggest thing is for them to know how much I enjoy being their dad. You know, how much I enjoy the process day in and day out. And with how much I enjoy being their dad, how proud of them I am. You know, and it's different. They're at all different stages. Like Walker, my youngest, he's just now like coming into his own. And Jake, you know this because you're in the same stage. But like their personality shows through more and more every day, what they're doing. You know, they're starting to talk, but you also can't understand. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun age. My daughter is amazing, but also terrifying because at 5 years old or 4 years old, she runs the house like she's 25. Like she terrifies me.
I got two of those, yeah.
But she's amazing in so many ways that I didn't even know was possible. And then like my son is, I feel like my son is 6 going on 16. Like he's already a leader in the house. He's caring, he's kind. He kind of encompasses like the perfect kid right now. And I'm so lucky for that. So that's my message of, I'm just happy to be their dad. I'm happy at this point, and I'm so proud of who they already are. And that's the exciting part about being the dad, right? Now you get to watch. Every day is different, every week, every month, every year. You just kind of get to watch and see who they grow into now. And that's the funnest part about it.
I love it. Tony, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time, honesty, the heart for your family, everything you've done. And everyone listening, if this conversation's meant something to you, can you please share it with another dad that could benefit from hearing it? If you haven't already, can you subscribe to this podcast? Leave us a review. It'll help us reach more dads. We're trying to build a brotherhood of fathers here. And, you know, again, I think, as we said, as team efforts here and everything that sports has done for these guys, a team, you need a support system. So I just want to say thank you again. And Tony, thank you for taking the time. We'll see you next time on the Hey Dad podcast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Tony. Thanks, man.